When you look at me, what do you see? Male, white, college degree. But what you don't see is that I am a convicted felon. See, I never intended to become a convicted felon, of course. I honestly didn't even intend to commit crimes. I had a very normal life. A decent neighborhood, a good school district, both parents. But over a few short years, several terrible things happened in my life that put circumstances in my life causing me to make some poor decisions. When I was 14 years old, suddenly my mother developed a drug and alcohol addiction and decided to divorce my father, leaving my life for several years. Months after that, my father got in a tragic motorcycle accident and he wasn't wearing his helmet. I remember vividly my brother coming into my 7th grade math class and pulling me into the hallway. We went to the hospital and 2 doctors pulled me and my brother into a small room to tell us that my father wasn't going to make it, that they had to pull the plug. This absolutely crushed me. My father held my life together. From that point, we didn't fall into foster care and we didn't have close relatives to take care of us. We simply started living with friends on different couches, every night not knowing exactly where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat, where I would shower, or how I would get to school. This made for a very unstable environment for a teenager. I started showing up to classes late, staying out skateboarding in the streets more, stopped doing homework. And before I knew it, I had a full-blown drug addiction at 16 years old, and I dropped out of high school. At that time, I convinced myself that selling drugs to just my friends and the people I knew in my network wasn't a bad thing. It's how I was going to take care of myself. It fed me, it fueled my own drug addiction, and it paid for things like gas to get rides somewhere. But that evolved quickly. I started selling drugs in another state when I realized I could make a lot more money. Once a week, I would take drugs from Keystone Heights, Florida to Savannah, Georgia. The first time making $200, second time $500, then $1,000, then $2,000. And before I knew it, I was making over $3,000 a week selling drugs one time. But just 3 weeks after my 18th birthday, I was sitting at a red light in Savannah, Georgia, when 6 Chatham County narcotics team officers surrounded my vehicle and at gunpoint arrested me. On that day, I was arrested with over a half pound of marijuana and 800 prescription painkillers. When I went to court several months later, I stood in front of a judge, and she sentenced me to 14 months in prison with 10 years probation and 400 hours of community service. I was absolutely terrified. All I knew was the common perception about prison, what you've seen on TV. Violence, gangs. I assumed the worst. I thought for sure, this is it. I'm going to get assaulted, maybe even sexually assaulted. However, although the first day of prison was terrifying, as you can imagine, my actual experience inside of prison was very different than what everyone thinks it's like. See, my very first day of prison, I walked to my bunk, a triple-story bunk bed, and I sat on the bottom bunk. An older gentleman named Rat leaned over from the second bunk and said, "Harley, this is the Bible. I want you to read it every day. It's going to help you get through this." I read the Bible just like he said, and it did help me. That's how I actually learned about religion. Mike, another guy in prison, said, "I know you're a high school dropout. So am I. Let's take the GED and better ourselves." I passed the GED with high scores, and Mike even encouraged me to go to college, which I did. And James said, "We have a library here. You should read as much as you possibly can." While I was there, I read over 56 personal development and business books. I decided that this was what I needed to change who I was so I could be a better person. And I was determined, when I got out of prison, I was going to be a productive member of society. However, when I moved to Columbus, Ohio, what I found was very different. What I found was rejection. Simple things we need, like food and shelter, were nearly impossible for someone who had made a mistake and paid their debt to society. I would go to apartment complexes and pay $35 to apply for an apartment just to have my $35 taken away and be pushed away because of a mistake I made. And again, $35, and again. And $35 may not mean much to you, but to someone trying to rebuild their life after prison, it means a lot. And the same with employment. Before college, during college, after college, jobs that I was qualified for and would interview for, but once I was honest about my past, they would not hire me. And as you can imagine, this is not just my problem, this is America's problem. 1 in 3 adults have a criminal record, 1 in 11 adults have a felony criminal record. This population faces a 27% unemployment rate. That's worse than the Great Depression. I was lucky enough to be able to get a good job. I worked very hard all through college, working to pay for my college, graduated with honors, had great letters of recommendation. After 36 interviews and 35 rejection letters, finally someone took a bet on me. Not only did I take the job, I excelled. I was promoted within 7 months to supervisor. But while I was at my job with my benefits and my career trajectory and my paid vacation, a voice in the back of my head got louder and louder every day, saying, Harley, there are still 626,000 Americans being released from prison every year here in this country, and they're going to face the same, if not worse, barriers that you had to face. And I couldn't accept that. I decided to leave my job to create a solution. My business partner and I created a fair chance online job board. Our mission is to help 1,000 employers adopt more background-friendly hiring practices and connect them with millions of ready-to-work job candidates. See, when you have a felony criminal record, looking for a job is like looking for a needle in a haystack. It could take 6 weeks, 6 months, even a year in some cases. Our goal is to bring that to 6 days. We believe that everyone deserves a fair chance after paying their debt to society. However, me and the company I've created are just a very small piece to the puzzle. As I mentioned, this is a national issue, and we need the entire country to change the way they think and view people with criminal histories, including you all here today. So I'm going to ask you again, when you look at me, what do you see? Thank you.